Well, hello friends. We have recently hit 1,000 subscribers. That is so awesome. Again, I want to thank all of you for people watching, commenting. We're developing a really good community here in the comments section. I wanted to take a second, or a little bit longer. I want to do a video telling you a little bit about my story. And I want to tie this into why on guitar most people fail. Why do most people fail on the guitar? Well, let's look at it as I tell my story. Okay. If we went around whatever town you live in, whatever city you live in, we did a little poll. We walked around and said, hey, excuse me, sir, ma'am, we're not trying to be creepy, but do you have a guitar in the household? There's probably a guitar in most households. Why? Well, it's a portable instrument. A lot of people, want to learn the guitar. Many don't. And I've been asked many questions as this channel started to grow about, are people gifted? Why do some people become really good? Some people don't. Well, I liken it to this. Imagine if you're a kid, okay? So we're comparing a kid to someone getting a guitar saying, okay, I'm going to teach myself. And the kid goes to school. But there's no program for the kid to say, okay, well, I'm in kindergarten and I'm going to learn this, this, and this. The kid just aimlessly walks through the school, okay? Doesn't know where to go, doesn't know what to learn, doesn't know what the steps are, walks into like a grade 7 algebra class and goes, what the hell is going on? Walks into a grade 5, science class, goes, oh, sex ed, what's this all about? Tries to play basketball with the grade 5s. Yeah, it's not going to work out too good. There's steps that people need to take. So with my story, I had really gotten into music as I started coming of age as a teenager. 10, 11, 12, I had a neighbor across the street from me. He was my age, and he was allowed to listen to whatever he wanted. And he was really into Van Halen. He really, and then he got into other bands as well, like Ozzy, Motley Crue, Rat, stuff like that. And I had an older brother who was 10 years older than I, and he was never into metal. But he had a very eclectic and interesting taste in music. And he liked everything from he had a huge record collection. He had everything from Blondie to ZZ Top to a lot of new wave stuff. I remember he had the Police Synchronicity album. And I listened to music on the radio. I started really getting into music. I have memories of hearing Genesis when I was in kindergarten or even in preschool. I remember hearing when Follow You, Follow Me came out from there, and then there was 3 album. But nonetheless, as I got older, it was 1986, and I was initially interested in drums. And drums, I remember my parents gave me a set of drumsticks, and I remember my mom saying, well, that if you do this, we'll get you 1 drum every... For whatever reason, my interest turned from from drums to guitar. And with the guitar, I begged my parents for a guitar, and to their credit, I have to say a lot. I didn't always have the best relationship with my parents, but I have to say when it came to music, they were pretty supportive for the most part, and I got to give them credit for that. And I remember begging them, and they finally got me a Sears, a guitar from Sears. It was an electric Harmony Flying V guitar. It was red, it looked cool, and I remember taking it out of the box. I didn't know what I was doing, and I tried to tune the strings, and I broke a string, and I remember really upset my mom. We had a bit of a fight go on, and they wanted me to take lessons, and I was like, well, no, I'm going to teach myself. We have all these preconceptions. I'm not going to say that being able to teach yourself guitar cannot be done. Obviously, some people have, but come on, there's been some people helping you out along the way. So what had happened was, I thought I would teach myself, and for a number of years, I would pick up the guitar for an hour, plunk away at it, didn't know what I was doing, and then I'd put it back, and then a few months later I'd take it out again, and the process would repeat. So part of the problem is when people don't have a methodology, they don't know what the steps are to learn. Back then, you could get books, cassette tapes, or VHS tapes, but they still didn't really give you the steps. There's something about that, having that in-person situation with someone who can say, no, you need to do this, place your thumb there, no, this is what we need to do, you need to get this down before you can go to this. And so early part of my teenage years, I had other interests too. I was into sports, I was into working out. But that's kind of what happened with music. And I remember being very frustrated. Now, along the way, there was a few good moments. I remember my formula for teaching people. Okay, it really comes down to three things: technique, plus theory, plus application. Right? And I'm going to talk about all three of these with you. One that'll break through happened for me before I started taking formal lessons, and that was a story in itself, and I'm going to tell you. I was in the library one day, and I had some guitar magazines, and I was reading, and I was really frustrated. I didn't even know the notes on the guitar, okay? And I'd been plunking around on a guitar for years. And there was a guy, he was a couple of grades ahead of me, his name was Steve Newman. So Steve, wherever you're at, I owe you a big thank you. Now, he didn't play guitar, but he was really good in music. He was in the band in school. And I think he might have played the saxophone, alto sax, saxophone. I don't remember exactly, but this is going back many years. And he said to me one day, he said, hey, I asked him, I said, I'm not getting this. He said, hey, it's really easy. You got to know the chromatic scale. And this is what became my number one step in teaching theory. Okay? Chromatic scale. So he showed me. He said it's really simple. You got the notes A to G. B goes right to C. And he showed me. He wrote it out for me. He said, okay, so we know alphabet A to G. Sure. Now, in between these notes, there's something called a sharp and a flat note. Okay? Mistakes here. Now, he really had a good way of explaining it. A sharp, B flat. And we just left it. And when I teach people, when I introduce them to this, I say, hey, we're just going to think of the string as having, we're just going to think of this note as having two names right now. A sharp, B flat, B, C, C sharp, D flat, D, D sharp, E flat, E goes right to F, F sharp, G flat, G, G sharp, A flat. Okay? So the way he explained it to me made sense. And so if you're doing one of the great things if you learn the notes on the keyboard, you know that all the white keys are all the notes that don't have a sharp or flat. Okay? So we'd have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. We can start from here. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. Now, the dark keys, they're the sharp flat ones. So we have A sharp, B flat, B goes right to C, C sharp, D flat, D sharp, E flat, E goes right to F, right? F sharp, G flat, G sharp, A flat, and back to A again, an octave higher. Great. Then on the guitar, translated to this. Big breakthrough here, guys. A lot of people don't know this, right? Sometimes I used to read in the local paper, oh, this local sensation is playing so-and-so, and we talk, and I'd go see them, and I'd ask them some basic questions, like, oh yeah, I remember when you played the C sharp to the C sharp, what's that? I don't know what that is. And I'm like, okay. All right now, okay. So, right then and there, I wanted to say to them, get into my Dr. Phil and say, what you have to do on the guitar, so on the A string, first fret, it's not an A anymore, it's an A sharp, B flat, B, C, C sharp, D flat, D, D sharp, E flat, E, F sharp, G flat, G sharp, A flat. Now we're back to the fret with the two dots as our 12th fret. it just repeats again. He explained to me, he said, and if you keep going, it's just that an octave higher. A sharp, B flat, B, C, C sharp, D flat, D. That was a big breakthrough for me. And then, of course, I learned that as that moved on in the strings, like if I'm starting on the E string, well, the next note in the chromatic scale or musical alphabet after E, that note's not the same. We've moved up a note. That's an F. We have F sharp, G flat, G, G sharp, A flat, and so on and so forth. So a big thank you to Stephen Newman for teaching me that. It really meant the world to me. And it was my first breakthrough when it came to music on the guitar, on a theoretical end. So when I teach theory, the first thing people have to know is a chromatic scale. If you don't know the layout of the notes on the keyboard or on a guitar, the rest of the stuff ain't going to matter. It's all just going to sound foreign to you, okay? So that was my first step with that. I had another big moment in high school. We had the talent show, okay? We had like the student showcase thing. And we had talent show. And I remember one year, there was this one band, they did Panama from Van Halen. The singer was not very good, but that's okay. And they had two guitar players. The lead guitar player was quite a bit older. He was like in grade 13 or whatever they called it back then. And but he was quite good, and he nailed the Van Halen solo and everything. But the rhythm player, he was okay. And as they went through the songs, the lead player was getting all the attention, and the rhythm player kept looking over at him. I could just tell he was like, you know, and then the rhythm player did a little solo thing. It was pretty basic with some bar chords and whatever. But then I remember seeing him the next year. Well, the lead guitar player, he graduated. He wasn't there anymore. And then the rhythm player was now the lead player, if not the only guitar player in that band. And the jump in his playing in 1 year was amazing. I was just watching him going, oh my God. Like he was nailing Randy Rhoads solos. It was just incredible watching the difference in his playing. He had a better guitar. He had a better tone. His stage presence was better. And he was quite nice. I remember picking his brain a bit, and he gave me a few tips. And I had also had another friend of mine, actually, because I sucked on the guitar. I was horrible. Even after all the years of trying to teach myself. And I had another friend, his name was Nick in my grade, and he played slide guitar. You know, he wasn't as good as the other guy I was talking to you about. His name was Jihad, okay? Well, anyway, Nick came over to my house one day, and he was much better than I was. He played some cool stuff on slide and showed me a few things. He saw how bad I sucked, but he could have really rubbed it in or whatever, but he didn't. He was like, hey, you know, like, he was cool. And I always appreciated that about him. So Nick Jones, if you're ever out there, and if you ever watch my channel, I really appreciate that, buddy. It meant a lot to me. And he said to me, but I remember he saw my playing, but I was very embarrassed. I was humiliated. I was like, oh, man. I suck compared to this guy. So anyway, I went back to see Jihad, and I said, hey, man, like, you improved so much. You improved so much on the guitar. Like, how did you do it in 1 year? That's incredible. God, I'd like to. Because I kind of knew. I was like, hey, you know, like, there's got to be something else going on. Why am I not improving? Like, why these people I idolize and watch playing on TV, playing guitar, like, why? I can't move around the guitar neck like that. Like, what? Something's going on. So he said, well, I take lessons from this guy, Joe so-and-so. Now, I knew who Joe so-and-so was because he was the cousin of my best friend, who was a drummer. Okay, I don't want to start inundating you guys with names, but, you know, I'd studied with many people, people with PhDs in music and everything. All my education was private. But Joe had a huge influence on me and my life. And I'm not big on social media, but I do, once a year, I'll write him a nice post about him and thank him once again for... and I'm going to explain to you guys what happened. Now, Joe was an awesome guitar player. Back where, you know, in the city I grew up in, he was like one of the top guys. He was like the guy, you know, like everyone's like, oh my God, this guy's wicked. And he gave guitar lessons, but I was under the impression he didn't really teach anybody. He would teach people that were serious. And I remember calling him, and I always get a kick out of this when I get a new student and they're nervous. And I'm like, you know, I was so nervous when I called him on the phone. And I kind of knew of him for years. When I called him to take lessons, I remember being so nervous. He said, yeah, okay. He gave me a time, and it was half an hour once a week, like most standard lessons are. And I went down. He said, well, play it for me. And I played a bit, and he said, okay. He said, well, we are going to work on your technique. And we're going to get your technique better. That's going to be our main thing right now. Well, technique... What is technique? Technique is the ability to play what you want to play, for your fingers to be able to do what you want them to do and do it properly, right? So playing, so technique could be, playing lead. It could be a lot of things, okay? But that was one of the things we focused on, and he showed me what a metronome was, okay? So I got to remind you guys, this is late 80s. People didn't really talk a lot about metronomes. There's a lot of VHS tapes for sale, these instructional videos by these hot guitar players of the day. And they'd, give you like patterns and exercises, and they'd be like, okay, well, just get it up to speed and we'll see you next time. And you're like, well, how do I get it that fast? They're playing so crazy. But I never heard of a metronome. I think John Petrucci from Dream Theater was the first guy to come along and say, hey, this is what I do. This is exactly how I do it. So I think all of us a lot of guitar players owe John Petrucci that from Dream Theater. But he gave me a really boring exercise. I forget what it was. And he showed me a metronome. So the whole concept is, it's like going to the gym. Okay, so if you go to the gym, you're not going to walk in and deadlift 700 pounds. Like, you have to do a specific training program, and you have to do small increments to get your body, your nervous system, your motor units trained to do that. It's the same thing with guitar. You have to train your fingers to do it, right? So he gave me a basic exercise, and we did it really slow. So in music, we use the term BPMs, or beats per minute. So it was something like... something like that. And he showed me how to do it on time. And so I went, I got a metronome, and he gave me this exercise, and he said, okay, work on it and show me where you're at next week. And the whole idea is, if you can get it really slow, then the next day turn up a little bit, and then turn up a little bit. Anyway, I took it home, and I tried to do the exercise actually, and it was so slow. You want to speed the metronome up, but you're told, no, you don't do it. Like, if you're in the gym and you're trying to deadlift, and you can't do 225 properly, you're not going to put on 405. You got to... So I got really frustrated and mad, and I wanted to smash it against the wall. And, when as human beings, whenever we're faced with a challenge, we have the angel and the devil. The angel on this shoulder, the devil on this shoulder. And, of course, the angel was saying, hey, you should probably do what he tells you to do. He obviously knows what he's talking about. Look at the way he plays guitar. But then I had the devil on my shoulder saying, man, guitar playing should be about fun. It's got to be fun. If it's not fun, all that other BS. Well, I went with the devil. So I went back to my next lesson. It was on Sunday. And I went in, sat down. He said, okay, show me. And I demonstrated. He said, you're not using the metronome, are you? And I said, no. I had a bit of an attitude as a teenager, right? And I said to him, I got to ask you a question, though. And he said, what's that? And I didn't know that this question was going to be a defining moment of my life. I said to him, can I still be a really good guitar player if I don't use it? It's boring. It's not fun. I don't like it. And he looked me right in the eye. And he said, no. So my instinct was to give him attitude. But what I did was I said, okay, let me sit back. This was the most mature moment of my teenage years. I sat back and I thought about it. I said, well, he obviously must know something you don't. Look at him play. He could play Far Beyond the Sun from Yngwie Malmsteen, anything from Steve Vai. All the bands wanted him to be the guitar player in their band in the city I was growing up in. So I was like, okay, he must know something I don't. So I had to make a deal with myself. I will use the metronome every day religiously for 3 months. And if I don't see a noticeable improvement in my playing, I just won't use it. Well, sure enough, after 3 months, I saw a huge improvement in my playing. And from then on, using the metronome became very addictive to me. Like, I liked doing it. I liked sitting there with my exercises, trying to push it and get better. I did quite the video a long time ago on my channel called, if I can remember, I'll put the link up. But you can find it. It's called, When I Tried to Be the Fastest Guitar Player in the World. Like, I got my picking to be really stupidly fast. I really backed off on that. I have good technique. I can sharpen it up whenever I need it. But he taught me how to develop technique. So we develop our technique by doing exercises with a metronome and slowly speeding it up. So it could be like a picking exercise, could be a scale. It could be like, a chord exercise. I remember doing this one when I really got into jazz. Sorry for the tone there. We're on a bit of an overdriven tone. But that's one of the big downfalls with people. It's really when you see in here, first off, the people don't know the steps to learn. So when I give lessons, everybody has a practice plan for the week. They know specifically what they're supposed to do. They're not sitting at home going, I don't know. I don't know what to do. So YouTube is great. And guys, I have a YouTube channel. You guys subscribe, you give me views, you know, you write nice things in the comments. I appreciate it. But sometimes having that in-person interaction is very important when you learn. The next problem we're going to talk about, though, is there's a lot of bad guitar teachers out there. So, you know, there's a lot of teachers that teach to live. They don't live to teach. I, for the most part, I've always enjoyed teaching. And that's part of why I wanted to, you know, start this YouTube channel last year. You know, I've been busy doing reaction videos. I have a list of hundreds of reaction videos people want me to do. So there's a lot going on with that, and I'm going to do it. But I love to teach. And, you know, that usually comes through when I'm giving lessons because it's a great feeling. I've taught people who are really good guitar players now, you know, or have developed to become professional musicians. It really gives you a nice feeling inside. But there's a lot of guitar players, guitar teachers that just, they don't care. Give me your money. Let me show you a little bit of a song. Okay, what are we doing today? Okay, so this is what we're going to do. And that's okay. It's good to incorporate a little bit of that, but the problem is when you do that from week to week and you're not giving the material for the student to work on to improve and understand their knowledge of music and guitar, songwriting, you know, technique. And I've had many students come to me over the years from different guitar teachers who they just take their money every week and they're like, you know, I've been taking lessons for 3 years. I feel I should be a lot further along than where I am. And, you know, when we have our first lesson, like, they don't know what a metronome is. They don't know what the chromatic scale, let alone what the major scale is. They don't know, you know, they don't know their 15 open chords. There's just nothing. It's just they walk in and pay and they're just kind of showing a bit of a song. I always struggled with that. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of guitar teachers out there that get frustrated with students that don't practice. So they're just like, I don't care. They're paying me for my time. I don't care. Well, I never really liked doing that, okay? I'm going to make separate videos on guitar lessons. I'd like to do a video for some business tips to help out struggling guitar teachers. But that comes down to the problem. People buy a guitar, but then they try and teach themselves. I'm not saying some people don't do well on it, but it's pretty hard, right? Just imagine you're going to school, walking into school, and you can go into any class you want, but you don't know what the direction is. You don't know, like, there's a methodology of learning. Like, have you ever, when you were in school, did you ever, you know, when you got at the beginning of the year, you got the textbook for whatever math course you're taking, and you looked at the back chapters and you go, oh my God, what the hell is this? But then as the year goes on and you've taken all the steps, it's manageable, you understand it. It's kind of like that same thing. Like, I just find it so needless when I see people who don't, you know, they'll really be into a YouTube channel, but they can't follow. Well, it doesn't take a lot. I say, theory, your first step is understanding the chromatic scale. You guys are probably getting tired of me saying that. I kind of touched on it in this video, but I do more detailed theoretical videos about it. That's your first step, and then from the chromatic scale, then we can get into learning the major scale, okay? Because everything in theory comes from the major scale. You have to have an understanding of that for everything else to make sense. So that's your first two steps, chromatic scale and then the theory. So the chromatic scale and then the major scale. I have some detailed videos that you can watch here on my channel for that. And then application. So what does application mean? Well, application would be if I'm like, okay, well, here's the B minor pentatonic scale. Okay, but great, how do I use it? Okay, so here we have a B minor chord progression, and you know, we have these licks that we're going to implement from the scale. Like, how do I apply it? That's what application is. How do I learn how to use it in my own playing so I can use it? So for me, it's those three things: technique, theory, and application. So I started taking lessons from Joe, and in a year, I was playing in this in the talent show, and at the end of, you know, our set, Jihad was a lead guitar player. I was a rhythm guitar player, and Jihad was just a ripping player at that time. He's a doctor now. I'm not big on Facebook anymore, but I had him on Facebook a while ago, and very nice guy. And I always appreciated how he took the time to show me a few things. And when we were done, Nick was backstage, my friend who played slide guitar and who gave me a few pointers. But he could have humiliated me that day. He came over to my house. He was that much better than me, but he didn't. He was cool. He showed me some stuff. And then when we went backstage, he was like, "Oh man, have you ever improved in a year? I can't believe it." And it made me feel really good. And that is my basic journey on guitar. So that's how I started out. But where I'm thankful is that I had times where the guitar would sit in the closet. But once I got on the right track, then I'm like, okay, now you have to learn how to learn. So once I started doing that, my playing just took off. So, someone had asked me, I believe it was Missy, asked me about some people that, what did Missy ask? I did a video about this a long time ago too. Like, can some people, are they faster learners? Do they take to things more naturally? Yes. But it's like, if you and I are studying calculus in high school, maybe it comes more naturally to you, but that doesn't mean that if I don't study really hard, I can get better marks than you. So even for people who are gifted, they still have to put in the work, right? No one just picks up the guitar for the first time and plays some crazy guitar licks. That doesn't happen. They still have to put in the work. I don't care who the person is. So, but that was my journey starting off on guitar. Okay, that was the first real phase. Again, I tried to teach myself for years. It didn't work. My progress was slow, brutal. It didn't need to be that way. So part of why I started this channel was like, learning guitar does not have to be so agonizing. So anyway, that's my story. But when I teach guitar, it's technique plus theory plus application. That's very important. And with theory, the first step is the chromatic scale. And then from the chromatic scale, we go to the major scale. Technique, we get people onto using the metronome. Now, again, one last note about that. I've taught many people over the years, thousands of people. And when people come to me and say, dude, I want to be really wicked, and we get into the metronome stuff, it's kind of like when someone goes to boxing for the first time, they actually get hit by a trained boxer. It's kind of almost the same thing. I can feel people's spirit wilt, and then the devil comes out and they make a lot of excuses. And I remember a fellow I taught about 20 years ago, and he wanted to be good, and I showed him, and every week I could just feel it. He would be like, well, the guitar, it's supposed to be fun, and this isn't fun. Maybe I'm not meant to do that, and I would never sell myself short, man, without trying my best. I could never do that, but, teach their own. And I bumped into him. He would be like, I hadn't seen him in a while, and he was like, I bumped into him and said, hey, how are you doing, so-and-so? How's your guitar playing going? And he was like, well, it's the... I said, well, what do you think? Oh, I should use a metronome, but I don't. I'm like, dude, I told you 20 years ago. Like, where would you be now if you used one? So that's basically, guys, for a lot of people, they don't understand how to develop their technique. Usually what happens, people get into this trap of going from YouTube video, watching 20 seconds of it, to another video, watching another 20 seconds, going, nah, let's do something else, and nothing gets accomplished. This is a very common thing for a lot of people when they're trying to teach themselves on the guitar. So if you look back on my channel for people, I have some lessons from right from beginners. Cover some theory, different lessons, but there's no plan. And when you don't have a plan and you don't know what you're doing, it's hard to get good that way. So, but again, technique, theory, and application. So guys, that's my story. And that is why a lot of people fail on the guitar and don't do well. All right, so remember, practice hard, but practice smart. Keep the comments and suggestions coming. We'll see you soon.